I recently went to Yorkshire Yarn Festival, and in this video we're going to talk about what it's really like attending a yarn festival. I took a lot of footage while I was there, so I'll show you everything that I got up to as well as everything that I bought. Welcome back to my regular viewers. If you're new here, hi, I'm Em, also known as Mima Makes. I'm a crochet designer, a knitter and a general craft enthusiast, and on this channel I usually post crochet tutorials, craft vlogs and a monthly podcast. If that sounds great to you, do hit that subscribe button and tick that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. So before we talk about Yorkshire Yarn Fest, I just want to let you know that I am not sponsored, affiliated or involved in the organisation of Yorkshire Yarn Fest. However, I did organise a crochet along linked to the festival this year, but I was not paid by Yorkshire Yarn Fest and I am not being paid to make this video. I'll talk a little bit about the crochet along a little bit later. So let's talk about Yorkshire Yarn Fest. So Yorkshire Yarn Fest is held at Samburn Hall on the outskirts of York, which is a beautiful hotel that's also used as a wedding venue. And there are some beautiful rooms in the hotel where some of the stands for the shopping of the yarn are actually held that are also hold weddings, and they've got beautiful beams and fairy lights, and it's such a lovely venue. The other thing that's really important to me as an ambulatory wheelchair user, so I'm a part-time wheelchair user in that I can stand and walk short distances, but whenever I leave the house I generally need my wheelchair. So what's really important to me as a venue is accessible, and YYF is one of the most accessible venues I've ever been to. There's a lift and all of the floors are flat inside. It's absolutely wonderful, especially compared to a terrible experience I had at Yarndale in 2023 where the venue is absolutely not accessible. So yeah, YYF is a dream to visit. The Yarn Festival itself involves quite a few different things. It runs from Friday until Sunday, and there are accessible opening hours and there's also VIP opening hours. There are multiple rooms with stands with yarn and fibre, both commercial and hand-dyed yarn, and other fibre and yarn related things there, all sorts of different vendors. When you're there, there are 4 separate rooms. 2 of the rooms I think are where the weddings are held. There's a bar and there's also a sports hall, and that's for all of your shopping needs, and there are also food stands and sort of socialising areas where you can sit and knit and talk to sort of fellow yarn enthusiasts, which is really lovely. There's also workshops running through the day. These are paid for, where you can go and have a lesson from someone. For example, there was one on beginner Tunisian crochet or knitting shawls, so there's all sorts of different workshops you can attend. I didn't attend any workshops this time. There's also craft nights in the evenings. So there's one on the Friday night and one on the Saturday night. And on the Saturday night, that's when I actually gave a talk at the craft night for the crochet along blanket that I was asked to design. So let's talk a little bit about the crochet along and the craft night. So after Yorkshire Yarn Fest back in November 2023, I commented on one of the Yorkshire Yarn Fest posts saying I was really excited for it. And the organiser of Yorkshire Yarn Fest, called Sophie, who also dyes yarn for a company called Botanical Yarns, so she approached me and asked if I would be interested in running a crochet along that would be linked to Yorkshire Yarn Festival, and I absolutely jumped at the chance. I host crochet alongs regularly anyway, and I absolutely loved going to Yorkshire Yarn Fest as a customer, so it was really good to sort of do something to promote it, as well as design something fun linked to Yorkshire. So I designed a blanket that had 12 different square designs inspired by the county of Yorkshire, which is where I live, and I absolutely love the Yorkshire countryside. I have a whole video about the blanket and the inspiration behind the designs that I'll link up in the top corner if you're interested, but I have talked a lot about this blanket on my channel this year, so I'm not going to go into too much detail again. But anyway, the final part of the crochet along, which was the day the crochet along ended, which was Saturday the 10th of November, I think. On that Saturday evening, there was a craft night where me and a knitwear designer called Vera Rain, I think. Vera, I should probably have looked up her name. We joint co-hosted a craft night. So that was a 2-hour session where you could come along, craft together, and we both got up and spoke about our designs and our inspiration and answered some questions. And I promoted it on this channel. I didn't earn anything from the ticket sales for this event, but I was really excited to meet some of you because I had never done an in-person event linked to Mima Makes before. So I was very nervous in the lead up to the craft night. And because I do have disabilities that involve managing my energy levels, I made the decision that although I had a weekend ticket for Yorkshire Yarn Fest, I wasn't going to do anything on the Friday or the Saturday apart from the craft night to make sure that those people that had come to the craft night got the best of me, and to make sure sort of that I was sort of healthy and well and able to talk in front of people. So we rocked up at Sandburn Hall just before 6 o'clock because it ran 6 till 8. And I was there with my partner who sort of helps me when I'm out and about in my wheelchair, and my mum came along as well. She is a knitter and now a crocheter, and this was her first Yarn Festival experience, so I invited her along. And when we got to the venue, we parked up outside. My partner opened the boot and realised he'd forgotten to put my wheelchair in. So I hadn't felt well for weeks up until this event. I drunk a lot of caffeine to try and make sure that I was able to give my talk despite not feeling very well. And then we get there and my partner had forgotten my wheelchair, and I love him dearly, but it just made everything a little bit more nerve-wracking. So he pulled up right up to the entrance and sort of walked me in just in case I got tired and he needed to go and grab me a chair. Sophie kindly offered for me to not give the talk, but I didn't want to let anyone down, so I still gave the talk. I just did it sort of sat in a chair rather than in my wheelchair. So I got there and Vera got up and talked about all of her beautiful knitting patterns, and actually her shawl I think was the first shawl I ever knitted. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the Colour Affection shawl is quite a famous popular design from a few years ago, and yeah, it was really nice seeing some of her designs in person and hearing about sort of her much longer career as a designer than me, who's been around about 2 years. I think she said she was around about 15 years. So it was really nice sort of seeing how far someone could go with being an independent designer. And then I got up and gave my talk that was supposed to only be about 15 minutes, but I might have gone quite a lot over. So I took all of the crochet blankets that I could find with me, and I talked a little bit about the crochet blankets that I've made, about sort of my journey as a crochet designer, and then I answered some questions. And whilst I was at the craft night, my partner did take a little bit of footage, so I will put up sort of like a highlight reel here. So yeah, I really apologise for the audio because I wasn't actually wearing a microphone and I didn't intend for him to film the entire thing. I just wanted a little shot of me talking, but no, he ended up filming quite a lot of it, so I will pop it up here now.
That is stunning. Oh, that's so gorgeous.
This is the Granny Love blanket. It's a simple giant granny square. I felt like a proper designer, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's so nice of you. But I'm also one of those weirdos that likes weaving ends in. For this, I was thinking more about what does Yorkshire and living in Yorkshire and experiencing the Yorkshire countryside mean to me. There are stitch dictionaries out there that have hundreds of stitches in, so why not explore them? Crochet clicks better in my head, for starters, and I feel like I can visualise it more, and it's like you're constructing it from nowhere, because especially with granny square, you start in the middle and working outwards. It's very, very satisfying to make a square. It's mostly granny squares because I'm a bit obsessed. Granny square blankets, they have my heart from the beginning. So I was really nervous, but I did relax into it, and it was so lovely meeting so many people. But yeah, shout out to those people that travelled. There was some people there from Ireland, some people there from various countries in Europe, and I even met a lovely crochet designer who had come all the way from Brazil. And it was really, really lovely meeting all of these people. And I saw a lot of finished Yorkshire blankets in person. It was so, so good. to see all these different colours and people's interpretations of the pattern. It was such a great experience. So yeah, thank you to everybody who attended the craft night. I'm not sure I'll be hurrying to do an in-person event again in future because I was so nervous about it. So that finished around 8 o'clock and we travelled home. And then the plan was the next day to come a bit earlier on the Sunday because we had a VIP weekend ticket, so we had an earlier slot, and there was also an accessible slot in the morning as well. So we got there on Sunday afternoon, and this was the day that I was going to do some shopping, and I had myself a budget and I knew what I was looking for. I really wanted to find a sweater's quantity of hand dyed yarn. And I knew that there were going to be some vendors there of yarns that I love, who I've seen before. I think the ones that I was most excited to see in person was Beehive Yarns, because I'm an avid online shopper at Beehive Yarn. She's my favourite yarn dyer, but I've never actually been to an event where she's vended. I really enjoyed Ducky Darling's yarns, and there were some other yarn dyers there that I'd met before, like Quack Yarns, so I was looking forward to that. I also discovered a couple of new yarn dyers that I hadn't followed on social media. They hadn't come across my feed, who I absolutely loved. The first one was Lottie Knits. Her colours, jewel tones. If you love jewel tones, they're just beautiful. And if you look at them close, there's kind of like a lot of variation within the colour, like a semi-solid. Oh, so beautiful yarn. And the other yarn dyer that I'd like to highlight that I discovered, and actually my mum loved her yarn as well, was Charmaine from Yarn Tings. And she had the most beautiful stand, and what set her yarn apart from others was she had some really unusual bases. There was like a yarn made from camel, and there was some like spinning fibre there as well made from camel, and her colours, jewel tones as well. If you've been on the channel before, I do love my sort of autumnal jewel toned colours, so I really loved her yarn, but I didn't actually purchase any of her yarn because I know I've got a big yarn stash and I wanted to scope out the entire festival. I wanted to make one loop around all of the vendors, just picking up the odd bits and pieces here, and then at the end of the day I'd go back and pick my sweater's quantity. I didn't actually end up doing that. I didn't end up getting a sweater's quantity. Unfortunately, as we got towards the end of the afternoon, I started feeling really unwell, and we had to leave before I finished doing my first loop of the festival, which was really sad because it meant that I didn't get to visit the Woolly Tangle to buy myself a new project bag because I love her project bags. So as we were walking around, I had my Yorkshire blankets hung over the back of my wheelchair, kind of as advertising, I guess, but also so people could recognise me. And a lot of people stopped and asked about the pattern, asked about the yarn. My partner was very good, and every time someone asked, he pulled it off the back of the wheelchair, held it up for them to see, and then folded it up and put it back down again. Him and my mum were absolute lifesavers with sort of helping me out around the festival and at the craft night. They were both so good. And yeah, so I met people that I had spoke to in DMs on Instagram. I recognised some people by their blanket as well at the craft night. I was like, oh, I don't recognise your face, but I recognise your blanket from our Facebook group. So that was really lovely. And yeah, meeting people face to face and talking to them was really good. I really enjoyed that aspect. I think if I was going to go back again, I'd prefer not to give a talk or be involved in sort of like the actual craft night or a workshop or anything like that. I'd like to go back for the entire weekend as just sort of someone who's going, and actually be able to experience maybe a workshop, some of the social events, and also as I could just sort of take my crochet and go and sit at a table and just chat to people. I would love that, but I felt like I couldn't really this time because my two goals for going was to do the craft night and not have a crash and to by crash, if it's a term we use when you have an energy limiting condition where if you overexert yourself, you then become really unwell and really fatigued. So I didn't want that to happen. I also wanted to buy some yarn. So I wish I kind of had done a bit more of the social aspect. So I think next year, so there is going to be a Yorkshire Yarn Fest next November. I think I'm going to buy a weekend ticket, and I'm also going to stay at the hotel for the weekend and just dip in and out when I want to. I think me and my mum were talking about maybe staying there together and making a whole weekend of it. I would love that. That's what I'm going to do next time, I think. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then there were two other things that I did at Yorkshire Yarn Fest. So the first thing was Ducky Darlings. So Ducky Darlings is a hand dyer. I've got a fair amount of their yarn. And when we went last November, my partner and me got really interested by their vintage circular sock knitting machine, and we got chatting to the guy about it, and I was really interested because I like knitting socks, but I prefer having the socks over knitting the socks at the minute. 2023 I knit a lot of socks and I loved it, but now I prefer having the hand knit socks. Like I'll take it off. I'm wearing a hand knit sock right now. In fact, my favourite hand knit socks. I'll just put that back on. So I love wearing my hand knit socks, but I'm not as keen on knitting them as I used to be. So we thought, oh, maybe we'll go away and try and find one of these sock knitting machines. So if you buy them new, there are a few companies. There's like a company in New Zealand, one in Canada and one in America. And they're thousands and thousands of pounds because they're sort of metal, mechanical sock knitting machines, and there aren't a huge amount of vintage sock knitting machines. So during sort of the late Victorian era and into World War One, these were really common, these sock knitting machines. A lot of people who weren't able to go to war during World War One would make socks and send them out for the troops to help protect against trench foot. But during World War Two, a lot of them got melted down for what the ammunition and things they needed at the time. So there aren't a huge amount of these vintage circular sock knitting machines around, so they're quite expensive as well. You're looking at upwards of £1,500 to get one of these vintage ones in working order. That's a little bit out of my budget, just a little bit. So there are 3D printed sock knitting machines. So we're actually in the middle of, before we moved in March, we were in the middle of 3D printing a sock knitting machine, and we've not gotten back to it since we moved. But this time, as we were speaking to the man that was sort of using the circular sock knitting machine that's involved in Ducky Darlings, he kindly let me have a go on it, and it's so satisfying as you turn it and you can hear those clicks as the needles go up and down. I'll just put a little bit of footage in here without me talking over so you can kind of hear it.
It's so cool, isn't it?
So yeah, so that was really, really fun to see that again, and it's kind of put the wind back in our sails with getting our 3D, well, I say our, it's my partner's, he is 3D printing this. I say we, my partner is 3D printing this. I've got no idea how it works. But yeah, so he's 3D printing this for me. So it's kind of put the wind back in our sails to get the 3D printer set back up and get going with it again. And then the other thing that I did is I tried an eSpinner, and if you watched last week's vlog, I talked a little bit about how it inspired me to actually purchase myself some spinning equipment because I absolutely loved it while I tried it. The eSpinner I used was an electric Eelwheel 6, and that was at the stand for the Threshing Barn, who sell a lot of spinning and weaving supplies. So yeah, it was shortly after I tried the eSpinner that unfortunately I started to have one of those crashes and we had to leave. So yeah, so I didn't actually get to purchase myself a sweater's quantity of yarn, but I'm not sad about that. I did, however, buy some yarn, and I did have some kindly gifted items as well from some of the vendors who recognised me from the craft night. So I will show you everything that I bought next. So I've got this little bag which has everything in it that I got. Some of this was gifted, but most of it I bought myself. The bag, how awesome is this little bag? This was kind of gifted to me by Sophie of Botanical Yarns, who also ran Yorkshire Yarn Fest. She kindly gifted me some yarn to go with it as well. But how awesome is this bag? I love it. So this is everything that I bought. So we'll go through it sort of vendor by vendor. So the first thing that I bought was from a vendor called The Cotton Pod, who stocks a lot of Skipier's cotton yarns, which was really lovely to see some commercial yarn as well as the hand-dyed more expensive yarn. And I actually bought my very first Skipier's Whirl. I think that's how you say this brand. And this is the colour Petrol Please Me. And it's a gradient fingering weight yarn, and it's 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. How cool is that? So yeah, so I got that from the Cotton Pod, and it came with a free pattern. You could pick the free pattern, and I actually went for this shrug pattern, which is from Scupia's. But I don't know if I'll actually make this. Now I've actually got it home and had a look at it properly. I think I would much prefer a shawl in this. So yeah, so that was my first purchase. And as I went around, I have some regrets of some yarn that I didn't buy. I have done some online shopping since then, so I feel a little bit better about some of the yarn that I didn't actually purchase. So next thing to show you isn't actually yarn. So this is a laser cut Christmas tree decoration, and this is from a vendor called Unwrapped Yarn, and I was fully prepared to pay for this, but she kindly gifted it to me as she was at the craft night. So yeah, I really love this, and this is going on our Christmas tree. I mean, please leave yarn under the tree. That would be my perfect Christmas present. It's not what I've asked for, but it would be my perfect Christmas present. So then we have 2 more stands that I bought yarn from. So the first was, of course, my favourite, Beehive Yarns. So this is one of her B-side yarn, which is sort of her seconds, and this is one of her dyed-to-order tonals called Khakis, and it's this beautiful olivey green. I don't usually go for olivey greens, but I don't have many olive green yarn in my stash, and I'm kind of thinking next year I'm going to pull out some of these autumnal colours and maybe make a blanket or a cardigan from them. And I knew that I needed some green to sort of balance it out. So this is one of the seconds because she said that the base, everything that she dyed on this batch of the base, came out a little bit tweedy. I don't know if you'll be able to see that here, if it wants to focus. So yeah, you can kind of see it's here. Can you see how the yarn itself is a little bit stripy, a little bit tweedy? So she said it was a problem with the batch itself, but I think it's beautiful. That doesn't bother me at all. And then she also had a big basket of mini skeins, and I love myself some mini skeins, so I picked myself out some. I'll pull them all out to show you. How many did I buy? Looks like I bought 6, and they're actually quite a beautiful colour palette together. I might keep them together as a little set. So yeah, these are some of the 6 mini skeins I got from the big bowl. I had a nice rummage and picked some out. So yeah, they're going to be added to my mini skein basket. And then the final thing is she kindly gifted me one of these. So this is, if I open it up, so it is like a plastic tube that you put when you are, say you're working a cardigan in the round down here, you can transfer all of your stitches really quickly by putting the end of the tube. I don't think this is going to focus because it's so small, but it might. There. So you put the end of the tube on your needle and then you pull it through and it picks up all those stitches, so you can reuse that needle or block it or try it on. So I've wanted one of these for a while and I've just not got around to getting one. So yeah, thank you, Beth, for kindly gifting this to me. And then we'll talk about what I got from Botanical Yarns, and she kindly gifted me some yarn. And there were 2 100-gram skeins from her bargain bin. And I also bought a mini skein set, which is really different to the yarn that I usually get. So we'll leave that till last. So I'll show you the 2 that I got from her bargain bin. So here's the first one. It's a lovely peachy pink. It hasn't got a name. It says one of a kind. But this peach is not something I have in my stash. And it's also on the high twist yarn base, which I have discovered I prefer to crochet with this over like a normal sock yarn base. And then the other one I found in a bargain bin doesn't have a label, but it's just this kind of greyish off. Yeah, kind of like a greyish. It's like a warm grey, warm pearl grey colour. I just thought that might be good for the autumn blanket stroke cardigan. I'm leaning towards a cardigan with this to sort of contrast against some of those deeper autumnal colours. I just thought a neutral would be nice. Potentially if I did the cardigan, this would be good for the button band and the cuffs. So yeah, so that was the other skein she kindly gifted me, and she also carries a new base, which I think quite a few yarn dyers now carry, which is a high twist sock base with neon glow in the dark neps. So yeah, and I said she used her sample maker used the base as the join on her sample of the Yorkshire blanket, and it was so lovely. And yeah, I really loved it when she showed me at the craft night. She said, come to the store tomorrow and you can pick some. So yeah, so that is this is the mini skein set that I picked from all of her neon offerings. These are really not my colours. I mean, look at my yarn. This is all my hand-dyed yarn. It's not my entire yarn stash, it's just my hand-dyed yarn. I mean, that's just a little bit different, don't you think? So yeah, and those, if you see, all of those neps, these neon neps, they're glow in the dark. So yeah, this is going to make myself the most super cool pair of socks that I think socks are the only way I can wear this. These colours will not. They make me look grey. I think bright colours make me look grey and washed out. So these are destined to become a really cool pair of socks, and I can't wait to try them out with a black light as well to see all of the neon nets. So yeah, these were again gifted. So I think this is available on the website, and the bag is available on the website. I'll link them down below if they are. But this is called Neon Gone Neppy. That's the mini skein set I've got, which is so cool. I'm actually really excited about this. Really excited about these kind of like neon highlighter colours. Love it. So that's everything that I bought and everything that I got up to at Yorkshire Yarn Fest. So if there's a yarn festival near you and you're a little bit worried about going for the first time, I strongly recommend giving it a go, even if it's just a couple of hours one afternoon to do a little bit of shopping. You might meet some like-minded people. Everyone is always so friendly at these events, and if you're a wheelchair user, do double check on the event's website, or maybe ring someone up just to check that it is accessible. Like I said, Yarndale, not accessible, YYF, wonderfully accessible. And I'm also going to be going to another local yarn festival in March, and I'm excited to see if that one is accessible as well. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this kind of mini vlog where we talk about Yorkshire Yarn Festival, and I'm uploading a vlog every Sunday throughout December, so do make sure that you keep your eye out for next week's vlog. I'll see you next time.